for instance, if you know that you want to lose weight, when you're in a position to choose between an unhealthy processed option or a whole foods healthy option, you are in control of that decision. And you know that you want to lose weight, so the decision that you can make in that moment to bring you closer to your goal would be to choose the healthy option. Welcome to Goodbye Hangry. Learning to live a life that's happy, healthy, and full, one bite at a time. I am your host, Audra Budenseek. Welcome back to Goodbye Hangry. I am your host, Audra Budenseek, and today I have with me Daniela and Michael. Hi, guys.
What's up?
Hello. ASMR. All the mouth noises.
What's ASMR?
It's like sounds that are supposed to like relax you or make you feel certain ways, and they're really popular YouTube videos.
Okay.
Yeah, they're super popular, and it's like they suck you in, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you're like 10 minutes in, and you've listened to a puppy chew seaweed.
Yep. That's
and you're
exactly
like,
it.
wow.
You start off making fun of it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh.
And you're in trance.
This is nice.
And then you can't stop, and 10 minutes later, you're like, what the heck? I can't get that back. I can't get that time in my life back.
And all of a sudden you're having to play them to fall asleep.
Speaking of that, you feel out of control.
Yup.
Today we're talking about control.
It controlled you.
It did. Well,
But also people use it when they feel out of control.
Oh,
to help them feel in control.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about how to take control of your life. And I think many times we feel like we are not in control of our outcomes when we really are. So today we're going to talk about how we can recognize what we can control and how to control it. And I want to start the conversation about a time when you felt like you were not in control.
Like specifically or just in general?
Either. Throw something at me.
Literally? Like this phone?
No, please don't throw anything at me.
I mean, I think a lot of people can probably relate to feeling out of control most of 2020. And probably leading up until this very moment, considering there's a lot of unknown that rests in what's going on with, the virus and so on and so forth. But I think that when it comes to like feeling in control, a lot of times we don't, or at least I don't feel like I'm in control if I don't feel like I have the information that I need to make a decision. And so I think, especially last year, there were probably several times where there was a lot of things that we couldn't control. And I know a lot of people who focused on that. Even though you feel that doesn't mean that that's what you have to focus on, which is, I'm sure, what you're going to get into. But yeah, I mean, I think there's several times last year that I felt out of control, or that I didn't have control of the outcome or the certainty of something happening or not happening.
Yeah. I can agree with you. 2020 was rough.
Mm-hmm.
So many unknowns. Especially, well, we started the gym. When was it? January?
Well, technically, it was supposed to be August of 2019.
Yeah. And then the things we couldn't control, permitting, terrible contractors.
Yeah. And then it got pushed to January, and then it got pushed to February, and then it got closed because of COVID, and then we actually didn't officially open until August.
Yeah,
like a couple
so a
months
full
ago.
year of just like
Yeah.
a shitstorm. Can I say that?
I mean, yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's your podcast. You are in control of this.
But am I? Oh gosh. Yeah, so that was crazy. I think 2020 was a crazy year for everybody. 2020. Call me 2020.
The commercials for Match.com, if you don't know.
If you haven't seen them,
You
YouTube
should
it.
watch
It's
them.
so funny.
They are funny.
Genius.
Yeah.
It was very clever.
Yeah. It actually makes me laugh about 2020, which is a good thing. Okay, so then what about a time that you felt like you were in control?
I mean, I feel like I could have several examples for that, so I'll defer to Daniela if she has anything that she wants to talk about with feeling in control.
All the time, I'm a control freak.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do you feel like you're in control? See, that's the question.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, but I think that's the question with control freaks, is the reason they're control freaks is they literally feel like they never have control of anything.
Yeah, I agree. I feel it's a recent development that I'm feeling more in control versus, like you said, 2020 was awful for everyone. So it's kind of like really nice having that feeling finally that you are in control.
What do you,
of some
what do you think
things.
is the shift? Like, what do you think from the past until now? Like, what's a recent development that's helped you feel more in control?
Not to get political, but honestly, it kind of felt like everyone was on edge until the inauguration happened, and now that it happened, there was just
I see.
kind of this shift, and
Yeah, I don't.
It like solidified the fact that he actually won, because I think people were like fighting over it until that moment.
Yeah.
And then once it was like, okay, well, this is actually reality, like both sides chilled out.
yeah, it's kind of it just felt like we were paused and we couldn't move either direction. We couldn't do anything anywhere, and now it just feels like we can finally move forward, whether that's personal or as a community in your own area, or as a whole in the nation. There's steps that we can finally control and take.
Yeah. I think this is probably going to sound really weird, but I guess nobody's surprised because I'm saying it. I actually feel in control when I'm super anxious, because instead of when I get super anxious like that, I use it. I know that something's off. Like I'm feeling that way for a reason, and it forces me to figure out what it is, and then control myself and figure out how to work through it. So a lot of times when I'm anxious, it's because I have forgotten to do something, or I'm scared to do something, or like there's inaction on my part or something, or I've done something that I regret, whatever. Any of those things can cause anxiety for me. So knowing that, when I start to feel anxious, I look at my life and I look at the pieces and I try to figure out like what it is that's not fitting right and how I can control that. So for instance, if I forgot to do something and I realize it, or I'm scared to do something, I take a step moving in the direction to conquer that fear, or taking care of that thing, or crossing it off of my to-do list. And that's probably when I feel the most in control. And then it helps with my anxiety too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So based on my experiences with control or feeling out of control, I have some tips that I want to share with you on how you can take control of your life. So tip number 1 is you need to know where you want to go. Meaning, like, what is the goal that you have for yourself? Whether it's like any type of goal, personality goal, a parenting goal, a life goal, a business goal, like any of that stuff. Where is it that you want to go? Because if you don't know where you want to go, it's like you put your hands over your eyes and you're just like blindly and aimlessly like walking around and making decisions. It's like traveling without directions or a map and then hoping you end up in a good place. But if you know where you want to go, you can use that as a blueprint to make decisions along the way. So for instance, if you know that you want to lose weight, when you're in a position to choose between an unhealthy processed option or a whole foods healthy option, you are in control of that decision. Mm-hmm. And you know that you want to lose weight. So the decision that you can make in that moment to bring you closer to your goal would be to choose the healthy option. And then that's how you can use a goal to bring you closer to.
Well, yeah, I think along those same lines, like if you don't even know, like even a step back from that, or closer even to not necessarily knowing what to do is educating yourself on what to do. So what is the difference between a processed food and a whole food or a natural food or whatever? Because I think a lot of times, like you said, people want to lose weight, or they want to reach a fitness goal, or they want to, do a marathon or whatever it is they want to do. They don't even take the time to educate themselves on what they would have to do to be able to do that. So I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, weight loss is not an action. So you can't control the actual pounds themselves. You can only control the actions that you take to lose the pounds. So I was just telling them, I said, you're going to have to focus on the actions first. So similar to this, like, if you don't know what to do, then simply take a step back and learn what to do first.
Yeah. I think that's part of even knowing where you want to go. So if you know you want to lose weight, like, inform yourself, use that goal as a way, as a guide to helping you figure out like how to do it.
Yeah.
And then from there, like what decisions to make based on that to bring you closer to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
I hear it all the time, and it kind of freaks me out. A lot of women say 10, 20, 30 years down the road, they're like, I don't know how I ended up here. Like, this is never the life that I had imagined for myself. I have no idea like how I got here. And that, to me, is terrifying. I hope 10, 20, 30 years down the road, I'm thinking things like, wow, like, I wanted to be here. This is where I wanted to be. I planned this. I worked towards it. Or even if like things don't go according to plan, at least you know that you are moving in a direction and you are being purposeful, yes, and intentional in your actions. I think a lot of times our brains and our decisions are on autopilot. And when you let your decisions be on autopilot, you relinquish that control. And for instance, like cravings, if you crave something and you automatically naturally reach for it every time, your brain is on autopilot, and you start to put the power into the food itself instead of into yourself and your option to choose. So you think like, oh my gosh, this food controls me, like I have no control over it, but you do, because every time you reach for it, that is your decision. That is the choice that you have made.
Mm-hmm.
So tip number 1 is know where you want to go. Tip number 2 is stop trying to control what you cannot control. And I think this is tough because you want to control things. And also, a lot of times as people, I think we feel like we know what's best, but that's not necessarily true. So when it comes to other people, we try to like give advice and try to control them and mold them into this other thing. But you can't control those things. So like, what are other things that you can't control?
I mean, there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think that, this is so hard because taking the stance that there are things you can control, you then all of a sudden start realizing like, oh well, I could have done this differently and maybe that wouldn't have happened, or something along those lines. But when I think about things that I can't control, so like to Daniela's point earlier, not to get political, but I separate myself a lot from that stuff because I know I can't control a lot of that. Decisions are made. Like, what am I going to be able to do in that moment to change that, let it play out, do its thing, then, okay, well, this is where we're at, and move forward. To me, big picture things that involve lots of moving parts are things that I can't necessarily directly control. Like, yeah, you have like voting systems and so on and so forth. That's fine. But as an individual person, you have to be very, very careful because your decision alone in that moment doesn't necessarily affect the whole. And so I think a lot of times we get hung up on, let's say you're at a big, huge company. There are little things that you can do every single day to make a difference, But that doesn't mean it's going to affect what's way up here at the top. It's going to take you and you and you and you and you and you doing those things to affect what's at the top. So I think that it can become very frustrating and maybe even scary a lot of times to think, wow, I don't really have any control of that. But when you break it down to its tiniest little thing, you can still do what's right. You can still make those decisions and
regardless
and move in that direction. Yeah, I mean, regardless of what's going on around you. But I think it does become difficult. It's just hard to think about now. When you just said the question, what are the things you can't control? You're like, well, you can't control that, but you can control that, but you can't. But it's crazy. It's weird.
I think that it gets a little scary because there are way more things that you can't control than what you can control.
That's true.
So, for instance, like, you can't control how others react. So if you do something and somebody reacts to you, you can't control that. So one example that I think of every time I think of this is Michael. One time when we were in Indiana, he was driving through, he was getting something for me from Kroger. And he was driving through the parking lot and he parked, not even being aware of like what was happening. He gets out of the car and some man walks up to him and starts shouting at him. Like, what was he saying?
He just said, I mean, he was in front of me in the parking lot. So he parked and then I parked. But I didn't, I just thought it was whatever. I just thought we were parking. He got out of his car and he yelled at me and he said, "You need to slow down," in the parking lot. And at first I was like, caught me off guard because I was like, well, I didn't think I was speeding for one. And of course your immediate thought is, dude, like, I'm gonna show you speeding. You know what I mean? That's your first thought. But then I was like, well, hold on a second. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, he thought you were speeding. Maybe you were. And so I jokingly said, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize I was speeding, but my wife does yell at me a lot for speeding through the parking lot as well." And I just kind of let it go. And then not even 2 seconds later, he turned around and he said, "No, you're right." He said, "I'm really sorry." He said, "I'm just having a really bad day." And he went on for like 5 minutes and told me about how bad his day had been. This was like the 5th place he had been trying to find some medication that he needed for his wife. So pretty wild to think that that could have gone way differently.
So differently.
But that's a great example of like, you can't control how somebody else reacts to you. So initially, like, you get this like, I'm gonna puff up my chest and I want to fight you type thing. Like, you want to stick up for yourself because somebody's yelling at you. And if you would have done that, it would have escalated the situation. But in the moment when you have that emotional rush and that is your first reaction, you don't even feel like you have control because you're letting your emotions control you. Instead of thinking, hey, I have a choice. Like, I can't control that he did that, but what I can control is how I respond to him. I can choose to emotionally react, or I can choose to react in a way that'll help diffuse the situation. And a lot of times our emotions make us feel like we are not in control, but we are. You are in control of that choice, how you choose to react to other people.
Yeah.
But I think, especially in the age of social media, there's been so much fighting and arguing, and like, you cannot control what other people choose. You cannot control their opinions. You cannot control their thoughts. You can't argue with them to a point where they end up being on your side. Like, you cannot control any of that. So even trying to, you're just going to make it harder and harder on yourself. Emotionally, mentally, you're going to drain yourself. So don't even try to do that. It's not worth your time. Even like, speaking of social media too, I think in reference to controlling what other people think is also controlling what other people think about you, especially people pleasers. Hi.
Hello.
Hello, we're in the room.
My name is Daniela.
Hi, Daniela. Yeah. Like, funny. You want people to like you, but you have no control over that. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Letting somebody's opinion of you control you in your life, you're going to end up in a place where you're like, how did I get here? Like, trying to control other people and how they view things and how they view you and what they think and their opinions, that trying to control that part of your life is actually what's going to lead you to a place where you think, how did I end up here? Because you start to do things for other people and respond to other people and do things emotionally that you don't even realize that those choices add up, and in the end, over a long period of time, you're just going to be confused.
Yeah, for sure.
So one more thing that you can't control is your past. So any past experiences, your childhood, the way you grew up, even choices that you made in the past, like you can't control any of that. What's said is done. You can't go back. Like there's no point in festering over it, which leads me to tip number 3, which is you need to learn to let go. To let go. So for instance, like the past mistakes, fear, baggage, any excuses that you had in the past, like those things don't serve you whatsoever. And I think a lot of times, and I know I've done this too, like the way that you're raised in a certain way, like you think, oh, I'm like this now because of that. But that doesn't have to be your story just because it's your past. Like you can't control that and change that. But what you can do is control and change yourself and where you are now, and no longer use your past as a crutch. Because there are so many people that came from worse situations than me. And trust me, my situation was not terrible. But there are things that affect you from your childhood. So you can either use those things and feel like guilt and shame about it and beat yourself up, or you can use it to empower yourself. You can use it to learn. You can use it to move forward. You can use those things as a tool. They don't have to be these negative things.
Yeah, I mean, I think letting go is or it can be difficult, though.
For sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It reminds me of every once in a while when we pull in the driveway, you're always like, remember that time?
Yeah.
No. We were waiting to pull in the driveway, and there was a car coming the other way.
There's a garbage truck in front of us.
Oh, garbage truck. That's
and
what it was.
This guy was wanting me to pass the garbage truck, but the garbage truck was right in front of...
our driveway.
Was blocking our driveway. Because it was... If we were going northbound, the garbage truck was going southbound, picking up our trash. So he was blocking our driveway. So I couldn't pull in. And...
You had your blinker on, but we have a road that sits right past our driveway.
House. Yeah.
That you turn left on.
And so this guy thought that I was trying to go to the street, and he thought that maybe the garbage truck was like too far in our lane, and he wanted me to go around it and turn down the street. So the guy honks at me, and he's so mad. I'm like looking at him in my rearview mirror, and this is another chance where you can choose to react emotionally, or you can choose to diffuse the situation. But unfortunately, I chose to react emotionally. And as I turned into my driveway, I glared at him through my window, and I was just like gritted my teeth and just
Audra glares at you. It's not a good thing.
I was like shooting fire. I have a very serious glare. Like when I glare at you, like you know that I'm ticked off. Oh yeah, it's it's scary.
It's scary.
Do you see that every day?
That's your fault. I'm just kidding.
You could have controlled that better.
But when I did that and I turned and I glared at him, he realized immediately, before he even saw me glare at him, as he saw me turning into the driveway, what had actually happened. And he was already like, oh shoot, like sorry, like my bad, and was giving like a nice wave, and I could tell like he was like, oh whoops. But it was too late. Like the look was on my face, and
scene red.
Yes. And when I saw him react that way, it just was like, oh my gosh, Audra, like it's okay. Like it's not a big deal. And it made me feel bad. So now whenever there's a garbage truck on our road and I have to turn into our driveway, I still think about that moment. And I'm like, oh God, and I'm so embarrassed by it. And so letting go it is tough. Even with like small things like that.
No, for sure. That's why I said even small things. Because, well, to me that's small though, but to you that might not be small. Right? I mean,
well, to me it's not small because in this moment in my life, I'm trying to retrain myself to react unemotionally.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why to me it's probably a bigger red flag in my mind, because I'm trying to teach myself to like calm down and just like let the emotion pass, assess the facts, and then move forward. And I don't have to like emotionally react to things all the time. Like it's not. Yeah. And in the end I feel worse. So I know all these things and I'm working through it, trying to figure it out. So that's probably why that moment stuck to me a lot more.
Makes sense.
But yeah, so instead of like guilting myself and shaming myself and feeling embarrassed about it, when I think about it, I can just be like, hey, oops, you made a mistake. Now next time you know.
Yeah.
Like you ended up feeling bad about it. He felt bad. Nobody won in that situation. It was ridiculous. You were just turning into your driveway.
I got a chuckle out of it.
this small, you're such a douche. This small moment in my life turned into this like big thing for no reason. So turning it from that and looking at it in a different point of view is helpful. But letting go is actually a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Tip number 4 would be to take responsibility for what you can control. What are things that you can control? This one can actually be broken down into one word. And then all the other things just filter out of that one word.
What is it, actions?
It's you. That's really the only thing that you can't control is yourself. You can't control anything else. You can control how you respond. You can control how you think. You can control your attitude, the effort that you put into things, the choices that you make. These are all things that you can control.
Yeah.
But it's also tough because I think when you realize that you are in control of yourself and everything, every single thing you do and every single thing you think, it's kind of daunting because it's like, that's your responsibility. Like, oops.
Yeah.
When you do, like, I know that my reaction to that guy was my responsibility. It had nothing to do with the fact that he honked at me. And so that was the choice that I made. And I think that's also where, like, that feeling of guilt and oops comes from too.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
It is your responsibility. And when you do make a choice, it's not like it's because this person made me. No, like that is your choice. And that's kind of like a heavy burden. It's much easier to be like, no, this person and like this thing and point fingers instead of inwardly looking in and seeing how your actions might have affected that situation.
Well, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about weight loss. Like, this person said, well, I want to lose weight. I want to lose like 30 pounds. I said, okay. Well, that is not an action. So let's focus on the actions that you can take. You can stop eating out. You can go on walks. You can ride a bike. He's got a bike. You can ride a bike. You can, like, what are all the things you can do? And then we'll see what happens on the scale. And then we'll adjust accordingly. We're not going to step on the scale, do nothing, step on the scale again, do nothing, step on the scale again, because the result will be the same.
I think when you think of being in control and doing things and controlling yourself, you also think of the things that you do and can do, but control is also the things that you can minus out of your life, the things that you don't do, the choices that you make that you don't do something. That's also control. And I think too, that type of control is very empowering.
Yeah.
So if you want to lose weight and you're stuck by, have this decision to make in front of you, this unhealthy option or this healthy option, and you choose not to take the healthy option, you're going to feel more empowered knowing that you didn't take it, as opposed to thinking like, I took the healthy option. Like saying no to the things that what am I saying? Saying no to the things that are like, I don't want to say haunting you, but like cravings and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
challenging you in some way.
Controlling you.
Controlling you. Keeping you from moving forward. Saying no to those things is so empowering. And also knowing that and building off of that and letting those choices build upon one another will motivate you even further to keep progressing and moving forward and making those same decisions.
Yeah, I agree.
Tip number 5 would be to roll with the punches. So there's a phrase or a meme or like this thing that's going around a lot on social media that says it's about the journey and not the destination. And it's just like, what the hell does that mean? And I think breaking it down is that it's not about necessarily losing the weight. It's about figuring yourself out and taking that journey and allowing yourself to learn and change and make mistakes in order to get to the end goal. Because if you are not committed to the journey, you're never going to reach the end goal. So it's not the destination that matters. It is the journey. It's committing to that part of your life in order to reach a goal that's actually going to make you find the success that you're trying to reach.
Yeah. Day in and day out. Week in and week out. Month in and month out.
Year in and year out.
Over and over. Yeah, I mean, it's a way that you live.
It is. And if you want to live a certain way, then you have to let that become a part of your life. There is no end goal technically. It's just like who you are now. It's not like once I get there, now I can revert and be this other person again. No, you have to let it like completely consume you. You need to be this person. Like if you want to lose weight, like the journey is becoming a healthy person, and that never ends, because the instant that you decide to stop being a healthy person is when you're going to gain that weight right back. So being that person, and part of that too is making mistakes. So I think like rolling with the punches.
Yeah.
You have to allow yourself to make mistakes, and don't let them like haunt you. Make a mistake like that, like tip number 3, and just let it go. Use it as a learning opportunity. Get to know yourself.
If you're on a weight loss journey and you have a cookie, that's fine. If you have a box of cookies, that's also okay, but not as good. So don't necessarily ruin a cookie with a box of cookies. Like,
yeah.
You had a cookie, it's fine. You don't have to have the whole box.
Yeah. One cookie doesn't have to lead to a box, which doesn't have to lead to...
Well, it's because the idea of like, well, I had one, so I might as well just have more. And then I've had more. And I might as well have some tomorrow. And I've had some tomorrow, I might as well just give up.
Yeah. So definitely rolling with the punches, accepting mistakes, learning from them, and being open to change. So I think that has a lot to do with control. Like a lot of times when we're faced with a change, we feel out of control because there's so much unknown. And because of that, because of the unknown and the fear of not being in control, we would rather stay where we are. But in order to move forward, you're going to have to change. You're going to evolve. And the tough part is even change that is going to be beneficial for you is still scary. So you have to push through that and accept that that's part of the process, and know that you have to change in order to move forward.
Yeah.
So, all right, to recap the tips, tip number 1 is know where you want to go. So set a goal and then learn what you need to learn and inform yourself, and then make decisions to move forward from there. Tip number 2, stop trying to control what you can't control. So all the other outward influences, just let it go. Like don't waste your time and energy on it, or else you might end up down the road wondering how you got there if you're focusing on the wrong thing. Tip number 3, let go. Let go of your past mistakes, your fear, your baggage, your excuses. And instead of thinking of them as negative things, change your perception and let them empower you to make the right decisions moving forward. Tip number 4 is take responsibility for what you can control. And the only thing that you can control is yourself. And remember that. And it, like I mentioned earlier, that it is daunting, but it is also empowering because you are in control, like of your future, the decisions that you make. Like you've got this, you're in control. Tip number 5 is to roll with the punches. So mistakes, bumps, changes, go with the flow. Keep making the decisions that you need to make to move you forward, regardless of what pops up in your life. Just keep going.
That's great.
All right, you guys have anything else you want to add?
Nope.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today. If you would like more information about control, or you want some support on your journey, whether it's weight loss or anything, feel free to reach out to us. You can also join our private Facebook group. You can just search us, the Fit Effect Movement, and then we will accept you into the group. And we have an amazing group of supportive women, people who have similar goals and mindsets and ideas. So we would love to have you. Thank you for joining us today. Until next week.